sessions, like,
Please take handful of the teacher and like go back and start going and being like,
who said that?
oh yeah, we have a lot of things. It's just very similar in a lot of what we do because she was one thing last year. So we're struggling with the same sort of thing. I mean, she teaches math too, which like I get so much props from teachers. Kids just like, just need it, you know? My kid's gonna be, she'll tell me, she's like, oh, this is so about my class. I'm like, I don't know how to do it. She's like, yeah, they just refuse to do work. I'm just like, she tries so hard to make it fun for them. She does a good job.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna go ahead and get started. My name is Dr. Shanta Smith. I have the privilege and honor of working with you today, and today we're going to talk about preparing 21st century learners, utilizing culturally responsive teaching in a universal design learning environment. And I think when we hear preparing 21st century students, one of the first things we need to keep in mind is that the students that we are educating today, while there are similarities from students from past generations, they are very, very different. And it goes across all racial backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, language backgrounds. They bring something totally different to the table when we talk about what's going on in America today. So we want to make sure that the strategies and techniques that we're utilizing in our classrooms are beneficial to the population that we serve. What's going on in your classroom might not be going on in my classroom, so there's not a one-size-fits-all. And I think sometimes what happens is that a number of school systems find packaged programs and they try to implement these packaged programs, and then they're wondering why it's not working. It's not going to work. If you like the program, then you have to look at that packaged program and probably say to yourself, what do I need to do to make it work for me? And one of the first things we have to look at is we have to look at the culture and the climate that we are creating in our school systems and our classrooms. So just to give you a little background information about me, I've just completed my 22nd year, so I must really, really love what I do. I've had the opportunity to work at the middle school level, the high school level, as a social studies teacher, a reading teacher, a communication arts teacher, and then I had the opportunity to transition down to the elementary level as an elementary school principal in the St. Louis Public Schools. And then, lo and behold, my mentor was like, it's time for you to transcend again. And then I fully transcended into the collegiate level. And full-time, I'm a professor at Southeast Missouri State University, and I'm an educational consultant. And so, you must be a Red Hawk alum. So with that being said, I've had the opportunity to look at education on all levels and work with a multitude of different populations. And one of the key things that's important with whomever we're working with is that the strategies and techniques that you're utilizing in your classroom is beneficial to that population. Because if what you're doing is not working, you need to stop it. It's just that simple. Sometimes we have to step out on faith, and we have to be courageous ourselves to take a stand to do something that's going to benefit our children. Because again, a lot of times what the system has put in place is not necessarily effective and efficient. And if you're not effective and efficient, not only are you wasting your time, you're wasting your students' time. So today what we're pretty much going to do, you're going to be able to pretty much have a definitive understanding of what universal design for learning is, get a look and an overview of the framework of culturally responsive teaching, and really take a look at how you can implement these two strategies because they overlap. How you can implement and utilize these two strategies and frameworks in your classroom to enhance what you're doing to make sure that you're both effective and efficient. So I'm going to ask everybody to stand up right quick. Everybody stand up. And if you don't have some type of tradition or some type of model that you do with your students, I would encourage you to do this. So for the past 22 years, whether I was at elementary, middle, high school, or on the collegiate level, this is something I do to start the day with my students. So we're going to do the motto and do the poem, and we're going to do it together. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. This day has been given to me fresh and clear. I can either use it or throw it away. I promise that I will use this day to the fullest, realizing that it will never come back again. I realize that this is my life to use or throw away. I say, are we motivated? You say,
motivated, motivated,
downright motivated, drive on, Dr. Smith, drive on, ho!
Together, excuses. Excuses are monuments of nothing that build bridges that lead to nowhere. And those who use these tools of incompetence are masters of nothing. Therefore, we do not use excuses. Task. Once a task has begun, never leave until it's done. Whether the task be great or small, do it right and not at all. Let's be seated. Now, with that model and poem, what it does is it allows the teacher and the student to know that the teacher is not just going to stand up and just magically transcend knowledge into your brain. It is a give and take situation, and we're going to do this together. So sometimes the teacher will teach, and sometimes the students will teach. Because when we talk about making sure that our students receive a quality education, and you're going to hear me use the word quality a lot, because a lot of our children are being educated, but they're receiving a crappy education, and it's nowhere near quality. So when we think about quality, we want to make sure that the education that is being provided for our students is going to provide them with opportunities of a lifetime. So as they grow and mature and become adults, they're able to function in society properly and contribute to society in a positive manner. That's what it's all about. If they don't have the skill set to do that, to pretty much live a nice, pleasant life, then the education that's been provided is inadequate. And we want to make sure that what we're doing in our classroom stops that and we really take a change.
So I do a class model every day in my class. And in the beginning of school, we went over and like we broke it down. But now it's like, oh, we need to do this every day. So like, how do you get kids to want to do it?
Before, what I do is it's an expectation from day one, and right now I do this with adults now. So the first thing I told them, especially with adults, I said, I know you probably think this is lame, that I'm totally off my rockers and something is wrong with me, but we're doing this so I can reiterate in your mind on a consistent basis that this is important so you can get a better understanding of what it is you need to do. And when you decide to make an excuse for me about your homework, then I'm just going to look at you like I'm looking at you now and say, what are excuses? And with you reciting that poem back to me, it's going to reiterate to you that I should have did my homework. I just made an excuse. So kind of make it part of your routine. So this is something that they do every day. One of the things that I did when I first started teaching is I started looking at what educators were doing in different countries. And so one of the things that my students could not even sit down when they came in the classroom. They could not be seated until they saw me. So they literally had to stand. And I'm like, I'm like, stand, okay? Because teachers deserve respect. You're going to respect me and I'm going to respect you. And we're going to make sure we're on the same page before we start this day. So kind of getting them into the tone of learning is important. Because a lot of them, they can't equate what learning is going to provide for them. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? This is really stupid. This is really dumb. Because for so long, they've received a crappy education. So when they get individuals like you in the room, they're looking at you like, something wrong with you. I don't think so. You just ain't right. That ain't what my other teacher did. I don't know about you, mister. What's going on? So you're kind of outside of the norm when really you are the norm because you should be the norm. So you kind of have to acclimate them to the goodness and the greatness that you bring to the table because they're kind of conditioned to mediocrity. And so you kind of have to ingrain it and instill it and be the leader yourself. So just like I stood with you and said it, just don't make them say it, but you model what it is that you expect them to do. And I'm not saying that this is something that's going to happen overnight because it ain't going to happen overnight. It's going to take a minute. So just keep doing it and keep doing it. And at the end of the day, it's going to be second nature. And you'll end up like I have kids that come up to me right now and say, excuses are mine, excuses nothing. They're 20 and 30 some years old. So it'll become a routine and they'll be like, do you still make kids do that? And I'm like, yes, I still do. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe you still make kids do that. So really that lets me know that somewhere down the line, even though it's just a simple motto and a simple poem, it's stuck with them. And some of them actually tell me stories of how if they're making excuses, they actually say that poem to get them out of that so that they can do what it is that they need to do. So when we look at our educational system, one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that the children, whether you're at the elementary, middle, or high school level, the children is the focus of all our efforts. So you see the circle with the child in the middle. And then you see 4 outer circles, which is the home, the school, the community, and the church. And the church is just standing for religious spaces. It doesn't make a difference if you go to the mosque, the synagogue. It doesn't make a difference. Our children normally flow between these 4 entities. And so one thing that we're experiencing is that these entities are disconnected. And when we talk about working with 21st century learners, we have to make sure that we, as the educators, are building and maintaining relationships with these 4 entities. Now, that might not be easy because depending on what type of school you teach at, you might say, lady, I'm not calling anybody's parents because they are crazy. And you say, I'm going to say, well, they're crazy. But if you want to have a working relationship with your students and their crazy parents, you need to reach out to the crazy parents. The community, something as simple as if there's a store on the corner where the school is, just going in to talk to the store manager or the owner of the store and say, hey, can you provide some incentive for my students because I'm doing this cool activity in my classroom, or the school is doing this school activity and we want to get the community involved, and we want you to reiterate, if you see Johnny hanging on the corner and he's supposed to be in school, tell Johnny to come to school. So building a relationship so that when the child goes between these 4 entities, the child is receiving the same message. They're receiving a similar message. So if we got kind of rewind for a minute and go back and think about Leave It to Beaver. Do you all remember Leave It to Beaver? Oh, that was like an awesome show. Leave It to Beaver, they had like the perfect American family. It was just a dream family to be. The husband, the wife, the kids, the white picket fence, everything was beautiful. Then if we fast forward a little bit, we get to the Cosbys, Claire and Cliff. Okay, we had 2 working parents now. They had it going on. They were actively engaged in their neighborhoods, in their communities. And then if we fast forward to 2014, we got a lot of dysfunction going on. We might have 1 mama, 1 daddy. We might have 2 mommies, 2 daddies, or you might be one auntie, uncle, cousin, or you might be in the system. So our families are not the same. So in order for us as a unit, we need to work together to make sure that the child stays in the center and they are the focus of all our efforts. Because again, when we talk about working with 21st century students, they are bombarded with so much if we compare them to ourselves. They're sexualized on a consistent basis. Oh my God, it is out of control. Criminalized, the list goes on and on. So when we think about what we're responsible for doing in the classroom, and you think about the things that are going on outside, it really makes you have a better understanding and appreciation for what it is that you're responsible for doing in the classroom. So building and maintaining those working relationships with these entities helps you in the classroom. But before you can even start working with your students, one of the first things that we have to take a look at is we have to take a look at ourselves and the type of environment that you want to kind of create in your classroom. So how do you go about doing that? Before you can even get into the classroom, you got to kind of visually see the students that you're going to be working with, kind of think about what it is that you're responsible for doing, how you're going to be effective and efficient, and think about what your purpose is as an educator. Why am I here? What am I here to do? How can I make sure that what I'm doing is going to be beneficial to my students? And how do I go about doing that? So one of the things that we need to do on a consistent basis is you need to kind of take a look at yourself and ask yourself a question, who am I? A simple question. Because a lot of times what educators don't do is we don't take the time to self-reflect and really think about who we are. So just, who are you? You're good, you're bad, you're ugly, your indifferences. What makes you you? Because you're about to go embark upon a journey where you're responsible for a lot of lives. And what you do in your classroom has a direct impact on the lives of your students. So how do you view yourself? How do you see yourself? Do you believe in yourself? Do you even have the confidence to go into your classroom and work with your students? Or did you just decide to become a teacher because your mom's a teacher, or your grandmom's a teacher, or somebody just told you it's a piece of cake, anybody can do it? So really thinking about what it is that you bring to the table, and how what you do impacts your students. So let's take about 2 to 3 minutes to kind of journal and just write down who we are. And there's no right or wrong answer. There's no right or wrong answer. You write it out however you see fit. This is just you describing who you are so that you can kind of reflect.
About another minute. Okay, let's make that your last word or your last sentence.
Okay, so again, before we go into the classroom, so we're like reborn because we're already in a classroom. So you're kind of doing a rebirth here because you're stopping so that you can slow down and just kind of take a look at yourself so that you can see where you are in life. Because a lot of times what happens is when we come into the classroom, let me use your lunch bag as a gym. Sometimes what we do is instead of us remembering to put this bag down and see it has stuff in it, we just don't do that. We just bring the baggage and we don't sit the baggage down. So if you had a bad night, you come to work, you're grumpy, you mad, and your student's like, what's wrong with you? I ain't even doing nothing. Yelling, shut up, sit down. And they like, I ain't even, what's going on? You okay? Just sit down. So that's what I'm saying, we have to reflect. So you just gotta put it, like she's got, put it in the bag. Now, the difference between us and our students is because of where they are developmentally, sometimes they don't know how to put it in the bag. But we have to work with them and show them, and I'll give you a good example. This is something that my mother would do to my brother and I on a consistent basis when we would wake up in the morning, because sometimes we wouldn't speak to people when we woke up in the morning, and my mother would look at us and say, I did not sleep with you last night. Good morning. When you see people, speak to people, because nobody was with you last night. Did I sleep with you last night? And I'm like, no, man. Good morning. Get that ugly frown off your face. You just woke up. And I'm like, dang. Can I just go brush my teeth? But she was like, no, respect people, acknowledge people. So we ourselves have to learn how to put our stuff in our bags, zip it up, and sit it down. And if our children come in the door with a just mean, grumpy face today, and you just say, okay, looks like you're not having a good day. I'm going to give you some time, but you still don't do that work, okay? I wasn't mean. I said it in a nice tone. I acknowledged where they were, but I'm letting them know that they're still going to contribute to what it is that we're doing, because I want them to be effective and efficient as well. So I just want each one of us, if you don't have a problem sharing, just kind of share what you wrote. And again, you could have had bullet points and you just could have wrote. And I would also encourage you to do this with your students, because it helps your students get a better understanding of where they are, and then it allows everybody in your classroom, because now you're working on their climate and their culture, it allows everybody in their classroom to get an understanding of where people are. I am Dr. Shanta Smith, the essence of education. I am the daughter of Randall and Constance Smith, and I have the privilege and honor of sharing my gift of inspiring, encouraging, and motivating by educating people. I walk, talk, sleep, breathe, literally eat education. I know that in order for me to be my best, I must uplift and encourage others. If I do good, you do good. If I fall down, you'll fall down. Working together, we help each other on our journey. Life is a beautiful thing, and in order for us to live a full life, we must do what needs to be done to help our children live their dreams so that they too can be the best that they can be. I'm Dr. Shanta Smith, the essence of education. And I did this, oh my God, probably 200 or 300 times by now. And I probably can make a book just of who am I. Because I constantly see that the privilege and honor for me is that at an early age, I knew that when I made a decision to become an educator, when I say I walk, talk, dream, sleep, I literally do this. Just everything about me is education. So anything that I do, even if I work with other people, even if we're out eating or something, some kind of way, some type of educational conversation, an educational tone, if you're around me, that's what's going to transcend. So I just know that this is the work that I was meant to do. So that's just so cool when you can figure it out. So I figured it out. And I like helping people figure it out, specifically if you're going to work with our children. Because if you messed up, they're going to be messed up. And we don't need to be messed up if they messed up.
So how often do you do this with your students? Because I did it like twice.
Okay.
And my students are very surface, like, or like, I'm a basketball player, or I like fashion. It's very surface like, and so I can't get them to think deeper about who they really are.
I got you.
And so like, we did it twice, and second time around, I got students to open up a little bit more.
Okay.
But it was still very surface.
Okay. One thing you might, what subjects do you teach?
I teach geometry.
Geometry. Okay. I thought you were going to say literature. I was going to
I
say,
wish.
you said literature. I was like, you can read a book with geometry, but no. You still might be able to link up so you can do some thematic units, like with the social studies and the math teacher. If you could come up with a theme that, oh, I know a good book. Oh my God. They brothers. They doctors. The Pact. That is a great book. The Pact. I can't think of the 3 doctors. It's on the tip of my tongue. I had my nephew read it this summer. And it actually, in addition to that, it actually has content where you can actually do stuff in the classroom with the students. But it'll work out cool for you because they're doctors, so that's gonna bring in that science and that math. But demonstrate to them that math is important, and I want you to kind of figure out how can you implement some geometry with that basketball that you're doing? Because you say you like basketball. So what does math have to do with basketball? To kind of have them kind of start thinking about how education is helping them do what it is that they're doing. And now they're not just thinking about basketball, now they're thinking about math and the educational side. And just showing them different examples and maybe calling on them to be the leaders in the classroom and do more things like that. But since you did it twice, you don't want to like inundate them with them. So I would say probably maybe about 3 more times. So maybe wait the second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. And then what that'll do, like at the end, after you do it in the fourth quarter, you can have them put all the pages out so they can kind of see how they've evolved as a person. And if they're still talking about basketball, don't worry about it. When they go to the next person, they'll evolve more. But at least you got them journaling and talking about themselves so they can kind of figure it out and see who they are. Anybody else? Would somebody like to share theirs?
I can share.
Okay.
So, I said, I just made a chart, so there's a lot of
Okay,
things going on.
that's good.
Okay, so one, I'm an educator, and off of that, I said that I prepare kids for life, not for college.
Okay.
And then I said I was a Muslim, and I have deep roots in my religion and my faith. It gives me strength. And then I said I'm a woman, and my gender has defined who I am as a person and why I believe certain things. And off of that, I said that I was very conscious about things in life, and I want to share that with my students. And so I connected it back to me being a teacher. I also said I was an activist and a strong believer that change will come one day.
Good.
And then I guess some other things like family and.
Okay. All right. Would anybody else like to share?
I can share some things, I guess. A woman created to be used by God to be a blessing to others. Educator, mentor, role model, a coach. I'm a woman who's destined for greatness. I'm imperfect but striving for perfection. Optimistic, lifetime learner. I got some other stuff.
Okay, good. Would anybody else like to share? All right.
I said I'm a work in progress mentally, spiritually, academically, personally, and professionally. I'm favored, which means I have high expectations of myself, and others have high expectations of me, which are sometimes unclear. I'm driven to succeed and reach for things that I don't know what I want, but I know, reach for things I know what I want, but how to get them are often unclear. So that goes back to the unclear thing. I'm a product of my environment, both the good and the bad. I am a motivator, I'm a sinner, I'm a black man, I'm an inner city public school, high school teacher. And I'm the life of the party.
All right. There you go. So again, so now we're taking a look. What this does is this provides us ourselves with the opportunity to see where we are, right here, right now, raw and uncut. I like how you say the good, the bad, the ugly. So you're just taking in everything. Because every time that we go into the classroom to work with our students, we're not going to be at our best. We can inspire and pump ourselves up and motivate ourselves. But if you're having a bad day, you just go in the classroom and say, not today. Not today, okay? Just work with me, not today. Because remember I said at first we got to work on building and maintaining that relationship. So if you built that relationship and you're maintaining it now, your students will be able to look at you and be like, I'm not going to mess with him today. I'm not going to mess with her today because I don't think they're in the best mood. And just by working with that, and then they might do something to put a smile on your face, or help change their mood, and then you come around. But I say that because sometimes what happens with us when we're talking about creating this environment, we can't even begin to create the environment that we're looking for because we don't share. If you don't share who you are, what makes you think that your students are going to share who they are? Because it's like you're putting up a wall. But you want to create an environment and a climate and a culture that's going to be conducive for teaching and learning. But if they don't know who you are, you've already set yourself up and you set them up for failure. So looking at yourself helps you paint the picture of what your environment needs to be and what it looks like, because you know where you are in life. So you know if you need to, you know, if that kid is getting on your nerves today, you just like, let me just count. I need you to sit down.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes, sir.
This is perfect. With the being open to who you are. And I know at first thing many like young TFA teachers will hear is don't tell students your age. Like, I'm 23. I'm not that older than the seniors, you know. And I probably went to school with some of their big brothers. And I haven't told students their age, but some students have like said ages which was like really, really older. And one student, I don't know, somehow they found out my age. One student found out I was 23. I was like, let's just keep it on the low. But ever since this student found that out, we have major connections. You know, and I guess the fear was the lack of respect. But I really don't believe that, because if I have my expectations of, you know, but this young black boy now know that I'm not that much older. We have connected so much. Like, comes to me, hey, did you watch that video yesterday? You know about those shoes, you know? And I think he respect me, the respect that we thought was going to get lost. He respect me more now because he can relate. So I'm actually kind of, I mean, I'm not going to make a big announcement. Hey, everybody, I'm doing, but I'm not that, that just goes back to like the benefits of opening up.
It does. And I'm not saying share everything, because you don't have to share everything, because sometimes we can share too much and, you know, you might need to pull back. But share so they can get to know who you are. I mean, what do you like? Do you like eating pizza? I know you're a workout guru. Do you like working out? I mean, because, and kids, you'll be amazed at what kids do, because they will help you with that connection. That'll also help you with that connection with their parents. Because sometimes we think parents, for whatever reasons, in our strange heads, we think that parents don't care about their children. Every parent cares about their child, regardless of their circumstances and their situations, regardless of where they come from. They want their children to be the best. They want something out of life for their children. They might not totally understand how to get it, so they might look to you for leadership and guidance, but they want the best for their children. So we have to make sure that we're working with them to help create this environment that we're trying to create in our classroom. So now we've taken a look at ourselves, we see where we are, we're envisioning the students that we're responsible for educating, we kind of have a glimpse of what we want this environment to look like. So now, when we talk about this environment, we want to make sure that we create a universal design for learning. And so in essence, what a universal design for learning is it's pretty much looking at the curriculum that you give to each individual to pretty much make sure that it's equal, it's equitable, it fits the needs of each individual that's in your classroom. It's not a one-size-fits-all. So say, for example, if you're an auditory learner, and 9 times out of 10, we teach the way we learn as an educators. So whatever your learning style is, that's pretty much how you teach. But when you talk about creating and utilizing a universal design learning environment, it's not about you anymore. You're looking at all of the students that you have in your classroom, and you have to remember that what you're going to do has to meet the needs of them. So every student is not an auditorial learner. So you can't just stand up and lecture. What you might want to do is you might want to break things up into chunks. So you might want to do something for 10 or 15 minutes and then turn around and have them do a think, pair, share. After they did think, pair, share, then bring the whole class back together and have an open discussion. Then break them out into some other small learning groups where they're working on another activity, depending on what it is that you're teaching. But again, you're looking at the curriculum and you're creating a learning environment that's conducive to teaching and learning, that's beneficial to everyone. So it doesn't make a difference if the students in your classrooms are boys or girls, they grew up on the north side of town or the west side of town, they're Christian, they're Buddhist, they're Hindu, it doesn't make a difference. They're gay, they're straight, they're bisexual, who cares? What we care about as an educator is making sure that you're provided with a quality education. And if the learning environment in my classroom is not designed to meet the needs of those students, I'm wasting my time and I'm wasting their time. So what UDL does is it really allows you to pretty much function in a way that's going to be beneficial to everyone. Now, you might say, lady, I don't know about that. Well, I'm not saying that it's easy. One thing on your part, you're going to have to make sure you're good at planning and preparing. Because if you're going to meet the learning styles and learning needs of everybody in the learning environment that you created, you're going to have to do things a little different. So if you look in the packet right quick, flip to the thing that says Universal Design for Learning Guidelines. You'll see that there are 3 key points when we talk about utilizing and looking at UDL. So the first one provides multiple means of representation. So that means, again, I'm not going to just do things the same old way all the time. Like give students worksheets, worksheet, 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 worksheet. How can I teach this lesson another way, because we're talking about multiple means of representation, besides giving them a piece of paper? What else can I do besides give them a piece of paper? There are a number of things that we can do to teach the lesson besides giving them a piece of paper. One cool thing, and I know everybody in here is tech savvy, technology has saved us. Technology allows us to enhance what it is that we're doing in the classroom. So let's say, for example, I remember the last session, you were talking about Reconstruction and Civil War. So we're doing a lesson on the Civil War. So again, it doesn't make a difference if you teach 3rd grade, if you teach 6th grade, or if you teach 11th grade. Civil War is the Civil War. You just kind of break it down to meet the learning styles and needs of that specific age group. But one thing we could totally cool do is we could utilize our iPad and we can have them create an iBook, or use the iMac. If your classroom has an iMac, you can have them create an iBook about the Civil War. So now they're just not looking at worksheets, writing. They're utilizing other information. You're allowing them to get together and work together to create a book based upon the Civil War. And don't give them a lot of direction either. You're saying, are you crazy? No, allow them to be creative. Because a lot of times what we do in our classrooms is we dictate everything that they should do. And we kind of stifle and stunt their growth, and we don't want to do that. When we look at providing multiple means of action and expression, I think sometimes when we look at this particularly, we ourselves don't really establish routines and procedures and expectations and goals. What are your goals and expectations for yourself as a classroom teacher? What are your goals and expectations for your students? Have you even established those goals and expectations? Have you even thought about that? Do you do any type of goal setting with your students? So use an example when you were talking about doing the writing projects with your students. One of the things that you could do specifically with the one that's talking about basketball, I noticed you talk about basketball a lot, so I'm assuming you might want to go to college to play basketball, you might want to go to the NBA to play basketball. So let's kind of take a look at developing some SMART goals for you, because how can you get there? Because a lot of times kids think, specifically when we talk about sports, they think that they're just going to get there off that skill set and their talent, and that's not how it works. So really introducing to them how to create some goals to help them meet that objective. Because at the end of the day, if his or her grades are not where they need to be, he'll never be LeBron James. It just won't happen. And you have to be real with your students, because LeBron made a certain grade in order to play basketball, because if you don't make the certain grade, you're not going to be able to play basketball, so that they can kind of see how it relates. So again, and allowing them to express themselves, and sometimes, you know, we don't really want our students to express themselves. We kind of want them to.
So when I did that activity with my kids, it was a body, and then they had to, like, their feet represented like their journey on how to get there. And a lot of them, even after I modeled mine, they still were like, oh, well, I'll just do this. Like, oh, I need to graduate high school, right? But I was just gonna connect the motivation in my everyday class to like their goals for some reason. Like, there's like a disconnect between like what they said they were gonna do and like what they're actually doing every single day. So even when I brought the paper back into my classroom, it's like, okay, well, yeah, I said I was gonna do this, but I guess like they don't see, or I don't know what's going on, where it's like it's not processing.
It's a disconnect, like you said, again, because I want us to think about, and your example is a great example. I want us to think about how we ourselves and how our students have been programmed. I just want us to think about that for a minute. You're introducing them to a totally different concept where one, you want them to reflect upon themselves and actually talk about themselves and say great things about themselves. And even us as educators, we're not provided with the opportunities to kind of talk about ourselves and highlight the great things that we do. 9 times out of 10, we're talking about the jacked up stuff that's going on in our classrooms or that's going on in our schools. So there's a lot of negative energy going around. So you're trying to bring something new into the classroom. So one, they're not conditioned to it, they're not used to it, so they really don't know how to respond. So again, it's not going to happen overnight. The process that you're doing, and like you said, it's a process, it's going to take time. So one thing, for example, I'm working with a young man, because I do tutoring as well, and I'm working with a young man, has very horrible writing skills. I gave him a story, started the 3 sentences. It was something about snow and the kids outside building a snowman. I said, so you got 3 sentences here, so I want you to finish this story. And I'm like, you see, you got this much space. I want you to fill up all the lines to finish the story. This young man is in the 6th grade. And I'm like, what is this? I said, there's no period. Where's the period? He said, that's it. I said, this is a very long sentence. There's no commas, there's no period. And you only told me one thing. Me and my cousin, we went outside to finish creating the snowman, and the snowman has funny things on it. I'm like, what are funny things? Again, he doesn't know because he hasn't been allowed to elaborate, explain. So what I have to do now, I'm like, okay, so let's look at a snowman. When we're outside and we're building a snowman, what kind of things can we add to the snowman? What else would you do? It's snowing outside, you're building a snowman. What else would you do? So now allowing him to brainstorm verbally, speaking, when I say actions and expression. So not just having him write it down on a piece of paper, but actually start talking. So now I've got him kind of thinking, speaking. So I'm like, okay, now you got all these ideas. I'm like, okay, kind of write these ideas right down right quick. And I'm like, boom, you just said about 6 or 7 things. So you can have about 6 or 7 more sentences. I just want you to write the sentences, then we'll come back together and we'll correct those sentences. So what I've seen by giving him baby steps, because he's never been trained how to write, I started off with just how to write a sentence. Then I might say, I want you to write 3 sentences. Now we move to paragraph writing. So I'm building, so scaffolding on what it is that you're doing. And slowly but surely, eventually, you're going to see what it is that you're trying to do with them. It might take you to the end of the school year because they're not there yet, but you're building on it. And then providing multiple means of engagement. Hello? Woo! That means what you're doing in your classroom. How do you engage your students? Are you that type of teacher that stands in front of the class and says, class, good morning. I would like for you to turn to page 25. And then you just go sit in your little chair and they're reading. And you probably checking papers or checking your phone or something, you know. And that's all you do. Or I say, like you said, you give them an overview. We're talking about the Civil War. I'm going to give you an overview of the Civil War. And now I actually want you guys to reenact the war. So now I'm letting them get up out of their seats. And you're like, wait a minute, I can't let them get up out the seat now. I'm letting them get up out their seats. So those kinesthetic students are going to be able to move. My students that like to act and like to talk, you know, people that like to talk, now they get to talk. Instead of zip it, they get to talk because now they're actually acting this out. So again, how and what is it that we're doing to engage them? My kids that are tech savvy, there are hundreds and thousands of apps that you can do. I would tell you to utilize Nearpod. If you don't know how to use Nearpod, that is an awesome app. You should get Nearpod. Get Nearpod. Use Socrative. Are you guys familiar with Socrative? Use Socrative.
How you spell it?
Socrative is Socrative. Socrative. And Nearpod, one word, Nearpod. and then Haiku Deck. Haiku Deck is another one. And these three that I've just given you, so if you don't have tablets and you don't have iPads in the classroom, as long as you have a computer, because you can do it on a computer, and if they have, hello, we know they have cell phones, so boom, tell them to go there. The one thing that Nearpod does is Nearpod, if you're doing a presentation, Nearpod takes over the device because you give them a code. So if you're worried about them like going to Facebook or Twitter or WorldStar or something like that, if you utilize Nearpod, whatever's on your screen is going to be on their screen. So within that, like if you're doing a PowerPoint, you can add questions into the PowerPoints and all that. What Socrative does is Socrative, while you're teaching, let's say, for example, you want to ask a number of questions. You can ask the question, you can have the kids respond, and it'll pop up on the screen. You can also do some polling, so instead of the old-fashioned clickers, if you don't want to do some polling and say how many people believe Barack Obama is a good president, and you can just have them say yes or no, boom, you'll get instant results. Also with Socrative too, I use it for entrance and exit tickets. You can actually have them do an entrance slip or an exit slip. Just make sure you have the students put their name and stuff on there, and it'll send you an email with all of their responses. So, also I want to give you guys another cool app that can help you guys. This app is called Quick Key. Quick Key was designed by a teacher for teachers, and what Quick Key does is, specifically when you're doing multiple choice questions, let's say, for example, you're going to do a mini quiz or something. Quick Key is just like a little Scantron sheet, and you just have them shade in the dots, and you just use your phone. I'm so serious. And it scans the answers, and it sends the data to you. Cool. And what? Quick Key. Quick Key. So what it does is your kids just took a 25 answer test or something. You hit it, and it scans the answers. And it sends that data to your spreadsheet. And also what Quick Key does, that's cool about Quick Key, what Quick Key does is that if you use like Infinite Campus and all the other ones, it'll link up with that and put the responses in your grade books and stuff.
But it has to be a Scantron sheet.
It's not, I shouldn't say a Scantron sheet, it's its own sheet. So when you log in and you get into Quick Key, it'll give you the sheets and you just print them out. So it's not really Scantron sheets, but they look like Scantron sheets, okay? So now one of the things we didn't even get to, we just got to Universal Design for Learning. We didn't even get into culturally responsive teaching, but let me kind of sum that up in a couple of quick seconds because you guys are going to be moving to your next session. You created the environment now. Now what you want to do is you want to implement strategies and techniques that are going to be beneficial to your students. So when you talk about culturally responsive teaching, what culturally responsive teaching does is it kind of meets your students where they are, and it allows you to acknowledge who they are and they acknowledge who you are, and you do what needs to be done to meet their needs and their learning style. So it kind of teaches to them and through them. So again, when you're combining UDL and culturally responsive teaching, you're validating them, you're empowering them, you're able to transform and transfer those learning things that you're trying to do in the classroom, and you take the time yourself to reflect and think, and you allow your students to take the time to reflect and think. And it creates a culture that's conducive to the teaching and learning process. And it really helps you become better at what it is that you're doing because you've taken the time to really look at different things to meet the learning styles and the learning needs of your students. So again, it's not a one-size-fits-all. You're actually doing different things to meet the needs of everybody. So again, using the Civil War as an example, we might have them watch a video, we might do a lecture, we might do a worksheet, then we might have them doing a reenactment, we might have the autistic kids draw pictures, and then our reading, writing people actually put a story to those pictures. So again, doing different things and working with each other to make it beneficial for everybody. Because again, one size doesn't fit all. We have to remember that our students have a desire, want, and a need to be the best that they can possibly be. But if we are not the best we can possibly be, our children will not be the best they can possibly be. Does anybody have any questions? Because that's my time. I appreciate and thank you for coming. And if you signed up in on there, every Monday I send out a Monday morning inspiration to inspire, encourage, and motivate educators. I will send that message out to you to get you pumped up so you can be your best when you're working with our children. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh, really?
That's randomly picked all the ones.
That's hilarious.
Hi, you here again? 5 years ago, I was at Sherman Elementary in the
So let's say
08,
the
09
live this afternoon.
school year, and then I was at Ashland Elementary from 06 to
What?
08.
Yeah. You never saw high school.
In summer at Berkeley Middle, or Berkeley High.
I have a question.
I went
Yes,
to-
I'm listening.
So I'm having an issue